to protect that thing that is going to help you go through life. And so that's the response that we get from kids is like, oh, it is important for me not to do drugs, not for the aspect of just not doing drugs, but because it's going to help me have a better life doing the things that I love to do.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Ray Lozano. Ray is a seasoned public speaker with over 34 years of experiencing inspiring youth, parents, professionals across North America. Delivering over 400 presentations annually, Ray has mastered the art of connecting with audiences through a unique blend of humor, humility, and science-backed insights. Specializing in drug prevention, communication strategies, and personal growth, Ray equips people with the tools they need to create meaningful change in their lives and communities. A true advocate for building bridges between generations, Ray has developed groundbreaking parent training that helps rebuild relationships with teens, especially those in recovery. In addition, Ray has authored Addicted to Learning, a compassionate exploration of addiction's impact, blending understanding with actionable strategies for healing. Beyond speaking, Ray runs a 6-week class designed to train aspiring speakers to effectively engage with junior high and high school audiences. With a 92% return rate at schools and a track record of transforming lives, Ray is driven by a profound sense of purpose to inspire others to give a heck and make a lasting difference. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Ray. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us
Oh my gosh,
some of your
without a
life
doubt.
journey.
Yeah, I am so excited about this. I just am looking forward to this conversation and just, yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you as well, because it works both ways. Time is infinite, but for us, it's finite. So when
Right.
you decide to invest time in just to apply for the show, to put that effort in, and then to show up,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. That
Oh, yeah,
investment of your time is something you can never get back. And hopefully, though, that investment of your time, you know, gives you something back
sure.
mentally, physically, emotionally. It could be all of them. Maybe you
Yeah,
get a good belly laugh. I don't know.
yeah, without that.
Right?
Yeah,
Life is too short to not, stop and smell the roses, like they say,
right.
right?
Oh,
And
100%. Yeah.
and build
No.
some great relationships. Like I was telling you before we hit record, I've created some great relationships with people around the planet,
Hmm.
people from Europe, Australia, US, Canada. I've interviewed people. It's been fantastic, right? It's just
Yeah.
and I've got lifelong friends out of it. It's
Yeah,
fantastic, and
I bet the,
and some of them I've never met yet, Ray,
yeah.
like face to face.
Just right here. Yeah. I imagine the people you run into and the conversations and stories you've had. Just, yeah, you're a great guest at a dinner. Yeah, just
Oh
the
my
story.
goodness.
Yeah.
I've had some very impactful conversations before, during, and after podcasts, and just realizing how really unique we are. But
Hmm.
we're like a seed that gets no water and it never
Yeah.
germinates, it never grows,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Nobody's fertilizing us, nobody's pulling the weeds,
Hmm.
right? Taking away the negativity or the things that energy vampire vibe we talked
Right.
about,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, without a
So,
doubt.
so there is definitely a huge problem today that we can address starting with our youth. And you had
Mhm.
asked me a question, what intrigued me the most? Well, your youth connection really intrigued me, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, I seen your picture and your handsome face kind of helped too,
thank
but
you.
I
Yeah, I don't
really
know where
like
this
the,
gray came from, but it's there.
yeah, me either, right? I don't know, five kids, five grandkids. I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
what it come from. They come from somewhere. But
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for investing your time. Ray, one of the things that I did mention to you and my listeners that if you're a new listener, you're going to understand why after you listen to this episode. I really appreciate when people share their actual origin story, not from high school on. I'm talking what do you remember about your
Oh,
childhood that maybe impacted you
yes.
that you never really give a thought to, that
Yeah.
helped you continue to climb and be able to get through adversities? Maybe you had no adversities. Maybe everything was sunshine and, roses. I don't know. But
Yeah.
most people it isn't. Could you do me a favor, Ray, and share with my listeners and people watching your origin story from your earliest recollections to
Yeah.
where you are?
Yeah, man, I love this question because I've thought about this quite a bit. Like, why do I have this passion for youth, and why do I have this passion learning drug and alcohol information? And there's a part in our life where we're just going through life, like age 1 to about age 4 or 5. So my story starts literally the day my brain turns on. And I think about this. I'm 5 years old. I remember being hot. I remember being tired. I remember being super crabby. And I'm laying on this floor and I have a little suit. And I actually have a picture from that day where I'm wearing this little suit and these fancy little shoes. And I'm trying to take my shoes off while I'm laying on the floor. And the whole time I'm laying on my floor, I'm looking up at my mom. And I think this is why my brain turned on. I look up at my mom and she's crying super hard, just crying hard. She looks down at me, and I remember her telling me to put my shoes on, like there was a sense of urgency. And even at age 5, I felt like, wow, what's going on? I'm taking my shoes off. What's the problem here? And I remember my mom jamming my shoes on my feet real quick and then tying them way too tight, grabbing me by my shirt, and then lifting me up. And I'm like yanked out of the verge of taking a nap. And she holds my little hand, and we go walking all the way down this big, huge room. And to me, when I look back on it, it feels like it was like an auditorium, but I don't think it was that big. We get to the front of the room, and the whole time we're walking, my mom is crying, and she keeps saying these words in English and in Spanish. She keeps saying, "You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. He's a good boy, he's a good boy, he's a good boy." And we got to the front of this room, and I realized there's a little fence, a little wooden fence in the front of this room. So I put my little arms on this fence, and I'm looking up at my mom, and I'm starting to panic now because she's crying harder, and she keeps saying, "You're wrong. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. He's a good boy." And so when I stopped for a moment and I turned and I looked in the direction my mom was looking, I see my oldest brother there. Now, I'm the baby of the family. Between me and my sister, there's a 7 year difference. Between me and my brother is 14 years. And between me and the brother that I'm looking at is 17 years. So when I'm 5, I'm looking at my 22-year-old brother. And my 22-year-old brother has on an orange jumpsuit, handcuffs, chains that go around his ankles. He's wearing some tennis shoes, and the back of his orange jumpsuit said County of San Diego. Now, I didn't know this at age 5, but my mom's filled me in with all the details. And what my brother started to do, we lived in San Diego, which is right on the border of Tijuana, right there. My brother would walk across the border, starting right out of high school at age 18. He'd walk across the border into Tijuana. He would purchase heroin, and then he would find someplace on his body or in his body to walk that heroin back across the border. And a lot of it was for personal use, but he was still smuggling drugs in the United States. After a period of time, about a year and a half or so, they finally identified him because he had crossed the border so many times that he got busted. And when he got busted, he had 3 balls of heroin in his stomach. Now, what that is, I don't know. Hopefully, none of your listeners are, you know, deep into drug smuggling, but they usually take heroin and you stuff it into a condom and then you tie it up real tight and you swallow it and you walk it back across the border and get it out of your system. So he had 3 balls of heroin in his stomach. He walked it back across the border. He got busted. They got the heroin out, and now he's standing in front of a judge. And a judge is holding up this Ziploc bag, says evidence across it, 3 balls of heroin in it. And my mom's pleading with the judge. You know, he's a good boy. You're wrong. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. Well, I remember looking at my brother, and even though he was in an orange jumpsuit, I had this sense of like, that's my brother. He's cool. You know what I mean? Just this admiration for him because I didn't know what was going on. And so I remember the judge sentenced my brother to a federal penitentiary. My mom's crying really hard. And I don't know if it was because I was in the courtroom or mom was there. I don't know where my dad was that day. The judge talked to the sheriff, and I remember all this commotion. And the sheriff spun my brother around to look at mom, and his, what we call in the Mexican community, his machismo, his manhood, his like pride just melted away, and he started to cry. He's gone away for a long time. And the sheriff moved him towards mom, unclipped his handcuffs, and he put his handcuffs around mom, and he hugged her. And I remember looking at my mom's mouth when that happened, and all she was saying is, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I looked at my brother, and all I could hear him saying was, I'm sorry. And those words are like burnt into my head, where all he was doing was apologizing. Then the sheriff grabbed him off mom and like pushed him down on me. And I remember my brother falling to his knees and wooden fence between us. And he took those handcuffs and he put them around me and he hugged me and he gave me a kiss on my cheek. And he actually saved my life that day. My brother whispered in my ear, he said, little brother, don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. And the sheriff picked him back up and off my brother goes to a federal penitentiary. And that is my very first memory as a kid growing up. And
Wow.
I did not know what don't do drugs meant. I didn't understand any of that, but I remember my older brother told me something that I mean, that was like the first thing, that's a very recording my brain has of stuff. And so as I started to get older, I started to realize how deep our family was into drugs. I had a dad who drank, and my dad was the classic angry alcoholic. So he would come home from work. We lived in a farming community, and Friday night, him and his buddies would sit on some buckets outside and they'd barbecue and they would drink beer on a Friday night. And between 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock, everybody's laughing, having a good time. 10 o'clock, the beer bottle gets thrown, the car keys, the fight starts, and my mom's out there screaming, stopping a fight. My other brother was 14 years older than me, was a drinker and a fighter as well. So the police in our little small agricultural community knew him pretty well. So he was always in and out of jail. My dad would have to go down and pull him out. My sister, and I've talked to her about this, my sister probably did drugs this morning. And she has, yeah, if I'm going to find my sister, she lives occasionally in New Mexico. I know I visited her, well, she lived under a bridge one time, and I visited her when she lived in a storage unit and even a doghouse and the end of a horse trailer and all that. And this is in part of the book that I wrote. And my sister's super compassionate, loves everybody. Anytime she's in jail, she becomes the helper in prison. If she's in a nursing home, she like takes over and she just has this sense of nurturing, which is pretty amazing in the midst of her drug use. And my mom, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, my mom was the embarrassed alcoholic. So my mom would get drunk, but she would always try to act like she wasn't drunk. So that's what I grew up in. And so the day my life changed, the day that I decided I wanted to do or know something, it's about 4 years after my brother was sentenced. I'm about 9 years old at this point. My sister is 16. My mom is sitting here. I remember having a little blanket around me. I'm sitting here. My dad's here. My sister's here. And we are sitting on the curb in front of our house. All the neighbors are out, police lights are flashing, and what happened is my other brother went across the border, came back, and he had brought drugs into the house. And so
Oh
they had
no.
followed him. So we're sitting on the curb as my other brother, I believe, was getting arrested, but the police were going through the house searching for drugs. And something inside my head on that curb clicked and it said, why do people do drugs? I had no clue. I never saw anything good come from it. I'd see my dad laughing, but then fighting. I saw my mom stumbling around. I saw my sister who started to use drugs at that point, and I just saw all this bad stuff. And it occurred to me, why do people do drugs? And it just started this thing inside my head at age 9. Like I wanted to know, why is my dad a really good guy? He drinks and then he fights. It's like this whole personality change, right? Why is my mom this super nice lady, man? I saw my mom make sandwiches for all the workers one time. I saw my mom give ladies rides. I saw my mom buy groceries for people. But then when she drank, she thought it was okay to yell or even hit us, and where does that come from? So at age 9, I became this inquisitive kid asking everybody. And I would ask our priest, why does my dad do that? Oh, it's because of alcohol. I'm like, yeah, I know that. I can see that. But what happens? I asked law enforcement, as when they came to our school and did their drug presentations, like, why does my dad fight when he drinks? Oh, it's because of alcohol. And I never could get an answer for that. And so I had to discover the reason why my dad fought when he drank. Why does my mom yell when she drinks? Why did my sister have her teeth falling out of her mouth, but yet she continued to use meth? Why did my brother think it was okay to smuggle heroin in the United States? And I had to have answers for all that. My brain would not let any of that go. And so once I discovered, oh, my dad fights when he drinks because there's this wall inside his head called inhibitions that alcohol has a tendency to bring down. So that's where the personality changes. Oh, my mom yells when she drinks because she loses the perspective and does not have the ability to tell what's going to happen in the future. So she's reacting right now. Oh, my sister is looking for this pleasure part, this reward inside her brain. So even though her teeth are falling out, the reward that her brain says meth is going to give me outweighs the loss of her teeth. So that's where it started. It started at age 5, watching my brother go to prison. And then it really increased at age 9, wanting to answer all those questions. And so my whole career is built on those two events. And so it has been a wonderful opportunity to explain to kids, this is why this happens when you drink. This is why you want to stay away from electronic cigarettes, because here's what takes place. And it's not years stuff down the road. Law enforcement does a good job what they do, but they have a tendency to talk to junior high kids. If you smoke weed, you won't get into a good college. Junior high kids like, I don't care about that. That's so far down the road, I can't even think about that. So when I'm talking about alcohol, when I'm talking about vaping, when I'm talking about marijuana, I'm talking about this is what's going to happen as soon as you're done drinking that beer. Here's what's going to happen as soon as you drink that drink. So it all started. That's my original story, man, and that's how it all started. Is right there with just being curious about drugs and alcohol.
Well, and your brother, I could visualize all of that. And
Hmm.
obviously, doing what you do, you're a great storyteller, and your tonality, and obviously, those watching on YouTube are going to get a different experience than those listening to, which is they're still going to enjoy it, but you could see that in your face. I could visualize you being at that little fence and your brother putting his arms around you and saying, "Don't do drugs." Learned behavior is so powerful,
Hmm.
but he gave you a gift
Right,
that made you hang on. And it may sound terrible, but by your sister going through what she's going through, your other brother smuggling as well, it constantly reaffirmed that little statement that your older brother said to you:
right.
don't do
Oh yeah,
drugs. Because
yeah,
you seen what the consequence was for your brother going to jail, and you seen how your dad reacted, your mom reacted, and obviously you've culminated all this as an adult and been able
right.
to analyze and look at it. But I talk to people all the time. What is your monster?
Hmm.
What's your health monster, your money monster, your physical monster? Was yours did was your did your parents ever do anything with you? Like, did you go camping? Did you
Hmm.
go on holidays? Did you go to the local park? Did you go, fishing? Did you do anything with your parent? No. Weekends, mom and dad were drinking, mom and
Hmm.
dad were smoking, mom and
Hmm.
dad were angry all the time. And you may disagree, but addictions are so much more than alcohol and drugs.
Yes.
People are addicted to sex because they're miserable because of learned behavior. They've seen their parents cheat on one another, and then
Mhm.
they became the same because they didn't know how to break
Right.
that connection to drugs and alcohol, and so they picked their own thing,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's all of it. Maybe it's all of it. Maybe it's
Yeah.
sex, drugs, and alcohol. Who knows? Maybe they're addicted to just to being angry all the time, or like you said, your mom, she became that embarrassed drunk.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's so many
Well,
things that we can attach to those addictions.
yeah, we all have it. We do. And it has to go back to the reward system inside our brain. Because when I look at my sister, when my sister can't get the drug that she needs, I watch these things that she goes through. She gets depressed. She gets upset. She doesn't know where her life is going, all that kind of stuff. And so when I talk to parents about addiction, we always have the idea that addiction ruins our lives, that it's, going to make us wreck our car or ruin our family. I'll be honest with you. I do 400 presentations a year because I am addicted to this. If I don't have presentations for a month, I go through all the same things my sister does. I feel depressed. I feel a little bit anxious. I'm like, when is my next speaking engagement going to come up? And it all goes back to that reward system inside our brain. Some addictions, working out, that kind of stuff, they actually benefit us. But I'm even, maybe safe to say you probably love doing these podcasts, right? I mean, and you'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and if you had to do a podcast at 3 o'clock in the morning with an interesting, guest, it's not a burden to you because it goes inside your brain and it hits that reward system, and it says, Dwight, you're somebody. Dwight, this is the direction you want to go. Dwight, you want to get this out there. So yeah, we all have it, and I talk to parents about that quite a bit. Like your kids, how do you get your kids addicted to you as a parent? Just use all those elements inside their head that we're designed to do, and so yeah, definitely what you're saying about that is we all have that addiction. We all have something that we kind of run to.
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned being addicted to the parent.
Mm,
Well, positive reinforcement. They
yeah,
come and talk to you, you actually listen.
right,
You don't
right.
dismiss them. They
Yeah,
come to you with their challenges. Can you put your character building moment that you're going through, mom or dad, right now at that point on the shelf and focus on the child and their
right.
hurt,
Yeah,
right? But the problem is most parents don't have the emotional IQ. They don't have the emotional strength to
right,
distance themselves temporarily from their moment, their character building moment they're going through, and realize that their child's more important than them.
right. Oh
Yes,
yeah,
they're important, but the child is at such a weakened state in their life that they need you to support them. That's how they become addicted to you because they know they can come to you and listen. You'll listen to them. They'll
yeah,
know that when they need you just to listen and not give advice, you know how to do that. And when you give
yeah,
advice, you're going to do it in a kind way. You're not going to be "I told you so" kind of attitude, or
mm,
well, you should know better. You being a parent is a lot of work for those listening or watching. You got to
yeah,
put effort into it. Being
yeah,
a friend is a lot of
yeah,
work. Being a
yeah,
son, being a
yeah.
daughter, being whatever. Life is in session. This isn't a dress rehearsal. You got to put some effort into it. You got to work at it. And
Nailed
the
it.
better person you are, the more people will be addicted to wanting to be around you. And
Right,
I think that's great. I call that, I teach on a 70-30 principle about how to get the toxicity and bad associations out of your life and have those people that you're talking about being addicted to. They can't wait to hear your next podcast. They can't wait to see you on stage again. They can't wait to just meet up
right,
with you and have a coffee or run into you at an event and you walk into the room and you can see these people that are addicted to you. I like how you put that, addicted to you personally, and their
right,
eyes light up and all of a
right.
sudden they're scurrying over to you because
Mm-hmm.
you give
Hmm.
off energy and they want to take it. They're an energy vampire, but in a good way because you can feel their
Oh
appreciation.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
feel
yeah,
their love. Guess what, parents? You can have that too. And your
yeah.
kids can be addicted to you. Are they 100% can always agree with you? Heck no. That doesn't
No,
work. Life isn't that simple.
yeah,
You got to
yeah.
earn. And those people that say, do what I say, not what I do. How many
Ah,
times? That
yeah,
that phrase drives me crazy. They're
yeah,
cussing and swearing, yet they give their kids trouble for swearing,
yeah.
right?
I talked to parents about that, how that really short circuits their brain because our brain is always trying to when I'm talking to parents, your brain's always trying to complete this loop and figure things out. So imagine you're walking down the street and you trip over something. What do most people do? They turn around and look to see what they tripped over, right? That's your brain trying to close the loop. If I were to look at you and go, "Hey, Dwight," right? You're going to go knock knock, right? You're going to do the shaving hair because your brain wants to close that loop. So when a parent tells their child, "Clean your room," and the child goes, "Why?" And the parent goes, "Because I'm the dad, that's why." What they have just done inside that child's head is they've short circuited it. Because when a child asks why, they're not challenging our authority. And it took me a little bit to learn this with my own kids. What happens is the brain is trying to go, "Why do I need to clean my room?" And I saw this with my mom when I brought home this. I don't know if you remember back in the day, there was a Farrah Fawcett poster. Probably most people in the room won't know what I'm
Well, she's
talking
in
about.
that bathing suit and her hair is flowing back and she's
Yeah, and it
posed
was
in
it was
side
must
angle
have been a
pose.
chilly day when she was doing this photo shoot.
Yes, I do remember it.
Yeah, how could you not? I brought that poster home from a record store and I put it up on the wall and I was proud of that poster, right? And so I came home the next day from school ready to spend my afternoon with Farrah Fawcett, and it was rolled up on my bed. It wasn't crumpled up, it was rolled up. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, here we go." Put it back up on my wall, and next day I came home, it was rolled up. And I think we did that for a number of days. And I finally came home and I did the thing every kid does. "Mom, what are you doing? This is my room. I paid for that with my money. Why are you taking it down?" And instead of my mom fighting me on that, I remember her going, this was down the road. I was in high school at this point. I remember her going, "Son, I don't like that poster because I don't want you to think of women like that." I'm like, "What are you talking about, Mom?" And she goes, "This person is more than just a poster or a sexy girl. This is a person that you're looking at." And it taught me this whole lesson. And my mom was trying to get across to me not to look at her just as a sex symbol, even though that's, what the poster was about, but that there's a human being behind that. And it really changed my life or it changed the way I thought about things, in that situation, as opposed to my mom going, "We're just not going to put that up." She like explained it to my brain, like why it's important. And I made a decision like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense to me." And my mom did that pretty well. And I'm
She didn't
really happy.
dismiss you.
Right, right. Didn't
And
dismiss me.
being dismissive of people is really difficult. I know there was times when my kids, especially being a single dad, would come home and there's more than one, and blah, 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 and I'd have to check myself out and say to them, you know what, right now at this moment, what you're saying to me, I know is really important. Is it so important that it can't wait for an hour? I'm just in the middle of something, and
Right,
obviously knowing, oh, okay, anything I'm doing is not as important,
right.
and just be honest with them. Oh, sure, Dad, calm me down, whatever. We can chat about it later. And then
Hmm.
don't forget about it though, parent
Right.
or
Oh yeah.
adult figure,
Yeah.
friend, guardian
Yeah.
can be that way with adults. I'll tell adults outright, you know what? I'm just not in the right, I use these words, I'm not in the right headspace at this
Mm.
moment to have this conversation. Is
Man,
this
that is
something
some
that
good insight.
we can put this, is there something we can put to bed with this later?
Hmm. Hmm.
About tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? Be empathy and understanding that people aren't at the right place just because you are
Hmm.
is a talent.
Yeah.
Knowing when I'm starting to talk to somebody and I look at their body language,
Hmm.
Ray, and I listen to their tonality or I watch how they stand because I practice being a person that studies human nature, I'll sometimes say, you know what? Maybe this isn't a great time for me us to have this conversation. You look distracted.
Right.
And sometimes if it's what I'm talking to them about isn't that urgent, I'll flip it back and I'll say to them, is there any way I can support you? I
Huh.
need somebody to talk to,
Man, you got it.
right?
Yeah. I
But it
love that.
takes work, dude.
Yeah. Oh
It
yeah, it takes a
does.
lot of work.
It takes a lot of work to care about somebody besides yourself.
Oh
Yet you
yeah.
have to care for yourself first.
Hmm.
You got to work on your own love tank and you got to fill your desires and needs and learn so that you can be better for others.
Yeah.
And if you're having that character building moment, it's okay to time yourself out either or, being the
Right.
starter of it or the person that's supposed to be receiving it. You're
Yeah.
doing that person a favor.
Yeah.
You're also letting them know you have boundaries.
I love all the stuff you're saying. Yeah, I agree with that. And
Right?
I that's the stuff I try to get across to parents so often. Uh there's one story I tell parents all the time. I'm like, if you want your kids addicted to you as a family, you have to create that environment. So I have a room of parents in the room. Some of them have little kids, some have older kids, and I'll ask them straight out, I go, how many of you remember playing the game tag? Right? And I see parents raise their hand. I'm like, not the one on your app, but the one where you actually went out and got, sweaty and you were out in the sunshine. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, I remember that. And I said, well, let me walk you through the game of tag. I said, and I want you to take yourself back there. I said, how did it work? Probably one kid in the neighborhood had a big tree, right? And there'd be 5 or 6 kids, and you would pick the kid that was going to be the person that was going to tag other people. Now I was a little bit overweight. No, I was a lot overweight, and I like ran in slow motion. But we had one kid in our neighborhood, Chad, and Chad was lightning fast. So he would always be the first kid to, tag people. So I tell him, all right, put yourself back in that spot. All right. You got Chad. He's got his hands up against the tree. He's counting from 1 to 10. Everybody takes off. You all run and hide, right? You all have your hiding spot. Then when Chad gets to to number 10, he'll holler, ready or not, here I come. And so then me, as a little overweight kid, I would hide in this bush and I would watch Chad, start flushing out kids and tagging kids and hitting other kids. And in my brain, when I could picture Chad was far enough away, I would pop out of that bush and I would take off running. And I ask parents, how many of you can feel that? How many of you are there with me? And parents are like, oh, yeah, I remember. And I'm like, yeah, I ran in slow motion. So I'm running. Chad sees me. Now he is running towards me and he's twice as fast as me. So I am running as hard as I possibly can to get to that tree. And I tell him, just picture that. Here comes Chad. I'm running in slow motion. Chad reaches his hand out to tag me. Somehow I miss it, and I put my hand on that tree, and I ask parents, what do I yell? Every parent in the room gets it right. They all holler the word safe. I'm like, yes. I put my hand on that tree, and I holler the word safe. I said, as soon as I hollered that word safe and I have my hand on that tree, I said, it's not just the word, there's a chemical reaction that takes place inside my head. And it said, this is where I belong. This is safe for me. I am okay here. Everything is going to be all right. And then I look at parents and I said, that's what your kids have to have. Your kids have to come home from school, put their hand on the house and go, safe. I belong here. I'm okay here. This is where I belong. This is where I'm going to be okay. And I said, if your kid can't come home and put his hand on the house and say safe, I said, you're never going to own that kid. You're never going to have that kid addicted to them because we always protect what makes us feel safe. My sister completely, and my sister constantly goes to the same drug dealer. And I've talked to her about this over and over again. And she goes to this one guy in this town and she purchases drugs from this guy on a regular basis. And I've asked her, why do you go to that guy? And she says, because I trust him. And she gives him the same thing. I feel safe around this guy. I don't feel like this guy's going to poison me. I don't feel like this guy's going to try to rip me off. So my sister has that same thing. So parents, if you're listening and you don't have a house where your child can come home and go safe, right? Then know this, they're going to go out and find it because our brain has to have it. They're going to go to a neighbor's house, they're going to go to some other place, and if you don't have that, you've lost it. And that's one of the big things that I get across to parents is you got to make your house safe. And I can explain how to do all that because parents automatically think, oh, does that mean I let the kid get away with whatever they want to do? I'm like, no, not at all. But you have rules in your house that make sense to a kid. You have rules that when you put a rule out there, a kid doesn't have to go, why do we have that rule? They understand why that's there. And if a kid has that, they'll protect it left and right. And
It's
that's
back to
one of the things.
back to communication. It's all
Yeah,
about
exactly.
communication
Yeah.
and communicating at a level that's, something they can understand based on their age
Yes.
appropriate conversation.
Hmm.
So many parents have inappropriate conversations.
Hmm.
And I know it even happens with my adult kids. I'm
Hmm.
not going to say which ones, and that's their life. They need to do whatever they're going to do,
Right.
right? And I look back at myself and I reflect back on my life and think to myself, did I communicate better with
Hmm.
the oldest versus the youngest? Of
Hmm.
course, I matured. I got
Right.
better because I
Right.
wanted to. And then there's people that say, well, they were all treated the same,
Hmm.
right? And they didn't feel that safe thing you talk about. Then all of a sudden, you have runaways.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
I had a daughter that did that a few times, and it wasn't necessarily so. Now you also have different dynamics and chemistry with kids with the amount of divorced families. I was divorced,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And all of a sudden now one parent gives them what they want because they don't have that attachment to that child. So by giving them everything they want and having no rules, they run to them and they think they've won. When in
Right.
reality, they've lost because now anything I've put into place to help them to feel safe, to put that hand on that tree is now gone.
Right.
And I don't know what the youth you talked about, but ones that doesn't mean necessarily that a mom and dad that are together that their kids are going to be better. Because
Hmm.
sometimes now all you have that drunk dad, dismissive mom, whatever, not dismissive, but more relaxed mom,
Right.
yet she's alcoholic, like you went through, or you could have a divorced family where one parent is got rules, they're consistent, and the other
Uh-huh.
one's just desperate because they have no connection to their kids. And
Right.
I use this and I share with you because now five adult kids ranging from 38 down to 25, right? Every one of them communicates with me and still to this
Mm.
day asks for support and
That's
advice.
huge.
And only one of the five communicates with their mother.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know the answer, but
Uh-huh.
people are saying, well, that listen to my show, I've had people communicate with me. Well, we get it, but why would they still be with you? Because people want consistency. They
Hmm.
want rules. We're not against rules. We're, like you said, we want rules that make sense.
Right. Right.
And if that rule and your kid isn't challenging you and they ask about it, hey mom, hey dad, why about this? Just sit them down and say, hey, you need to clean your room because it's a form of cleanliness. There
Hmm.
can be bugs, there can be this and that, and it just, you come into your room and it's clean, you're gonna feel better about yourself. How about we
Right.
try
Right.
that out?
Yeah.
And if it
Yeah.
doesn't work, let's see if we can work together. It's
Yeah.
communication. Was I perfect at it, Ray? Absolutely
Yeah.
not. I
None of
would
us
never
are.
lie. I just
Yeah.
kept on getting better.
I'll
Things
tell
were
you what,
different
if
different
you
from my
got kids that,
oldest to the youngest. It
yeah.
was different parenting. It just was.
Yeah. If you have kids that are still talking to you at this age, you're a winner. You did a lot of things right because I see so many parents whose kids don't talk to them anymore and they're shocked and they're like, why is that happening? I'm like, let me spend some time with you and I'll probably tell you why. But going back to what you're talking about rules and kids talking to you, because I talk to parents as well. And so normally, like, let's say I did a program in San Francisco. I asked all the parents, I said, how many of you gone across the Golden Gate Bridge? And every parent's like, yep, yep, I've gone, across that bridge a bunch of times. And I said, let me ask you this. Let's say that they took the guardrails down on the bridge, right? So there's no guardrails now, so you could just easily walk off the side. I said, would you feel safe on that bridge? And parents immediately say, no, no, I would not feel safe on that bridge at all. And I asked them, well, how many times have you hit those guardrails and it's kept you from going over to the side? And they're like, never. I'm like, but you're saying if they weren't there, then you're going to feel unsafe, right? And they're like, yep. And I said, that's what rules are. You set these rules in boundary and say, this is the area that you can drive in. I says, you'll have some kids that'll run into those rules over and over again, and you'll have other kids that'll just go. But the thing that those guardrails do is they keep you they help you to have that feeling of I'm safe, I'm okay. And that's why that guardrail's there. So when you're talking about rules, you have one parent that has guardrails up that kids may never hit, and you have another parent who says, I'm going to take these guardrails down. And at first, it's like for the kid, it's like, I love it, no guardrails. But then somewhere along the line, it hits them and they're like, you know what? I do need rules. I do need those boundaries. And that's where that comes in. And that
Well, and
analogy,
it backfires. It
but
backfires on
oh
people.
yeah, yeah,
I
totally.
love that analogy. I'm going to steal that.
Done. It's
Borrow
yours,
it.
buddy. It's yours.
And like I tell people, when you find out a great idea, you tell the first person you tell it to a group, you give that person credit. The
Right.
second time you say an associate of mine or a friend. The
Yeah.
third time, you own it.
You want it? Yeah. I
I've said that a million times to people. They'll
that's
say, I'm going to steal that. Good. And here's how you
yeah.
steal it. And then they
Yeah.
laugh, right? Because
Yeah.
what is life? Life isn't
Oh yeah.
always serious. You got to have a chuckle. You got to have a
Yeah.
belly laugh. You got to have that warm, fuzzy sensation that
Right,
just,
right. I
you
do
know,
these drug and alcohol presentations in front of teachers, and I start off some of them I start off and I come out like really stern and I say, listen, you're going to see a lot of slides right here. And if I find out 6 months down the road that you have stolen all of my slides and are using them, I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to be overjoyed at that. And I said, steal him. I said, because it's not about me getting this information across. The important thing is that you're able to explain why a kid shouldn't use an electronic cigarette. And if my slide's going to help you do that, then steal my slide. And we put them on our website. We like if you want our slideshow, you take it. Yeah, we'll develop new stuff. We'll keep coming up with new stuff. But exactly what you're saying right there, man. If you have a good idea, if my analogy of that bridge helps you to explain to a parent and make them a better parent, you own it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, at the end of the day, though, it's unfortunate, but I had people tell me when I used to, I had people I'd communicate with about my sadness and my heartbreak because even though I had legal custody, one daughter would go back to their mom and they weren't supposed to, but going to court and fighting all the time doesn't correct anything. So I just let them have to trip, skin
Uh-huh.
their knee, and decide, I've been
Yeah.
here for a month. There's no
Mm-hmm.
food in the fridge all the time.
Right.
I can't always get to my extracurricular stuff. Who's
Uh-huh.
the person coming here to get me, even and they love me enough to show through actions
Right.
that they're going to still pick me up and take me, even though I'm making a poor choice of being back with
Right.
that parent that doesn't
Right.
have the guardrails,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And time went by, and yeah, all five kids communicate with me at different levels. I have some of
Right.
them. There's two of my five kids I talk to every day. They
Yeah.
communicate with me, whether it's a simple text or it's one of my kids flew out to Seattle today to see one of my other daughters that is a travel nurse. She's working in Seattle right now.
Oh
She's a
wow.
Canadian,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
a Canadian working in Seattle. Flew out with two of my grandkids, right? I got up earlier than I normally would get up because they asked one of my adult sons to take, like my only adult son, part of me, to take them to the airport.
Uh-huh.
And I want to come. Why, Dad? I just want to see them off. It's Willie's 8. It's William's first time on a flight, and I just want to do
Right.
that. I want to be
Right.
there. I want to give them
Yeah.
hugs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they want me to be there. My daughter was excited I was coming, right?
I
So,
love it.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just
You're a winner, dude. You are a
it's
winner, man. You did a bunch of stuff right.
but it takes effort.
Mm-hmm. Oh
It
yeah.
takes it takes course correction. It takes
Yeah.
reflection. And one thing
I
it takes is always having gratefulness for the fact that I even have that when there's so many parents that don't.
oh yeah.
You're right, they don't. They
Yeah.
wish, or people will go, "Oh, I wish I had what you have."
Yeah.
Oh, it must be nice. It must have been so easy.
Uh-huh.
What do you mean
Yeah.
easy?
No. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
went
So
through the
true.
school of hard knocks as a parent. I did bad. I made mistakes. I apologized with sincerity, and I worked on me continually.
Mm-hmm.
I asked for forgiveness for things that I did that I wouldn't have done for the fifth kid that I did to the first kid. Not to say abusive
Mm-hmm.
things, but you know what I mean? Just parenting things.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
you're right, such and such. I'm sorry that I was a young parent. There was no parent book. I didn't
No.
know what to do.
Yeah.
I was trying
Right.
my best, and then advice I was getting from other people that weren't the greatest parents wasn't I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm
Everything
sorry.
comes with a manual except for kids. You buy a washing machine manual, dishwasher manual, stove,
Yeah, there's even a
Yeah, everything.
glossary at the back. You can look up.
But they just hand you another person like, here, this is yours, go home.
Oh
Like,
my gosh. All we can do, brother, is just, give it for me. I'm Christian faith bearing. I give it up to God and I say, what is your will for me? I'm
Yeah.
grateful for you allowing me to wake up today. I'm grateful for
Right.
today, getting to
Yeah.
talk to Ray earlier. What a great conversation. Please continue to bless me with people that
Love it.
we have the synergy, the energy. Being grateful is so important. But
Oh yeah.
anyway, I digress. This isn't
Yeah.
about me, it's about you. But what a
That's
great
about us.
conversation. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
great conversation. So, one of the things, there's lots of stuff that I want to talk to you about. So let's keep on moving forward.
Okay.
So Ray, so many people live in a Campton life, right? We've talked about that. You've brought up the proverbial hamster wheel, unable to move forward. They're stuck in a rut. We've already talked about this, but just to reaffirm, going to work, go home, then get paid and repeat, right?
Yeah.
They just they're living for the weekends. They're living they can't wait till Friday comes around. Look at all the posts today that'll probably be on social media. It's Friday. And
Yeah.
what are they doing? They come home and they hit their addiction,
Yeah.
alcohol, drugs, maybe both. maybe
Yeah.
they're maybe they're out, away from their family because they've worked hard. Daddy deserves this or mommy deserves this. They make excuses. The other
Right.
parent does, their significant other, while that person goes out and parties or goes and does their sports.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a hard week, I deserve to do all this stuff, constantly
Right.
making excuses for being on that hamster wheel. you
Oh
know
gosh.
I've worked with people for going on 23 years to get unstuck and live a purposeful, intentful life. Was
Mm.
there any one person in your life that drove you to have this tenacious attitude that you've developed, and that never die attitude?
You know what? It was my dad. And so probably, and I got stories of, him stopping drinking and stuff like that. But once I started to get into high school, they were getting older and they kind of changed their lifestyle. And my dad had that real show up for work kind of attitude. And my dad was a rancher in the Imperial Valley, and he took over this one guy's ranch, and the guy was really diverse. And he had sugar beets, cotton, hay, but all of it was like okay quality. So my dad presented this idea to him way back in like, gosh, the late 70s. He said, let's grow one crop on your field. We're just going to do hay, and we're going to make it the best hay that, other racetracks and, other farmers are going to want to have for their feed. And this farmer took a chance on my dad. He said, all right, let's just focus on one thing, hay. And my dad became one of the top hay growers in the Imperial Valley. We were selling
Wow.
hay to, some of the racetracks, Belmont and Santa Anita and stuff like that, because it was such high quality. And I saw my dad go through this, and I think it really helped me to have like a single focus, like focus on that one thing and get that right. And then after my dad got the whole hay correct and was just making money hand over fist with that, then he started to branch out in some other things. But I really think my lesson of focusing on drugs and alcohol came from my dad, and just that single focus. Like I wanted to be the guy that schools are looking for when it comes to drugs and alcohol. I don't want to be a speaker on bullying. I don't want to talk about goal setting. I don't want to talk about I want to be the speaker that the schools are looking for, just like my dad was when it came to hay. And I think that's who really drilled it in me is that single focus. And, I've seen some movies where they talk about that as well, just having that single focus. And then once you get that down, then you can move into some other areas. And I would attribute it totally to my dad on
What a
that.
powerful story. I know myself in regards to my father, very successful business owner, grew up in now I'm in a city of 1.5 million people. I grew up in a community of like 12,000, farming
Uh-huh.
community,
Uh-huh.
and didn't realize all the lessons. I don't know how long it took you to realize that, but the lessons that I learned from my dad and the pride and the customer service skills and
Right.
just the different things that I learned from him, didn't realize till I was in my later 20s, early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
But, was my dad perfect? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Great man. I learned a lot from him. He had his flaws. We all can have our flaws, especially if we don't know how to identify them and work on erasing them.
Right.
But, I learned a lot from my dad too. So thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
Especially with the adversity of your dad being um, heavy into alcohol and stuff, there was
Mhm.
still a light, there was still
Oh
something
yeah.
that helped you grow, and that's amazing.
Yeah, that's part of my book, what I talk about. Sometimes we, you know, just, oh, they got a drug problem. There's nothing they can give me that's going to help me out. But yeah, I don't see it like that. My sister, like I said, if I were to call my sister right now, more than likely she would be intoxicated or pretty high and stuff like that. But I still learn lessons from my sister. I still try to glean what, she can give me because she's a human being. She deserves my respect. Has she done some crazy stuff? Totally. Has she, gone out there and, destroyed a big, yeah, yeah, she has, but she's still a human being in the bottom line. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to get across in my book. Just, I had to draw the line with my sister. Like, you can't step over that line, but I still have love and compassion for her. So,
Well,
yeah.
good for you. And
Yeah.
that's a similar thing. I'm totally different to my two. There's three of us, two older sisters. I'm the youngest.
Mhm.
Just like there's differences between my oldest child to my youngest, female, male. There's commonalities, there's similarities, and they even the ones that are the most challenging for me as an
Mhm.
adult to adult parent them. Um, it's sometimes shocking the things that they can say, and I'll go,
Yeah.
that's a light bulb moment from you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
it does happen. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, next thing I want to discuss with you is so I was reading about the fact that you unsuccessfully tried twice to launch your dream business, and the third time around, it panned out and it was the ticket you were looking for.
Right.
But through these challenges, what did you experience in all aspects of your life? Because it's not just business. What did these challenges teach you that set the course of running your third attempt, your successful business today? What did you learn through
Uh,
those character building journey
oh,
moments in your
that's a good
journey?
one. Yeah. Ah, um, I learned as I'm thinking about it, I can't do everything. I can't. And I thought that I could. Now, when I first started my business, I thought I got to talk to every sponsor that calls me. I have to answer every email personally. I have to make sure that I send out and so I tried to do everything. So I was a speaker, I was the marketer, I was the contract person, I was the email person. And the reason why my business had started off really well and it took off, but then it hit this point where it was too much for me. So when people were calling me, it was taking me too long to get back to them because I would either be on the road speaking or I'd have some other contracts. So by the time I got back to them, they had made a decision. So that was the very first time my business took off and then it crashed. And I thought, man, I wonder what happened. And so I brought my wife on board a little bit and she kind of helped out. So the first year went about 5 years and then crashed. The second year it probably went about 7 years or 8 years and then it crashed. And I thought, why is that happening? So I started to read books and started to really look into this, and I realized that I am no good at contracts. I am no good at, detailed work. I'm big picture guy. And so I hired an administrative assistant who loves connecting and saying, okay, he can be here this day, but he can't be here this day. And she like Rubik cubes all the calendar together. And, it was so funny because every time I would give her stuff, I'm like, I'm sorry, here's some stuff for the calendar. She's like, I love it. So she is like meticulous on that. She doesn't want to speak to kids. She's awful, I would never put her on stage. But boy, I will never take her off my calendar to the point where I don't even touch my calendar. If I put something on my calendar, she gets upset with me, because I mess it up. So that's, what I had to learn is that I can't do it all, that I have to have individuals who are great at that kind of stuff come in and assist me with that. And once I learned that lesson, it has, really flourished to the place where I'm at now. So that's my big thing. Even when it comes to, parenting, you can't do it all. And you got to get some advice from people and you got to, reach out and, and seek the things that you're weak at. We always want to hire to our weakness. If you're no good at spelling, hire somebody that's great at spelling. If you're no good at contracts, hire somebody that's great at contracts. If you have trouble communicating with your kids, find somebody who is and kind of glean from them. So yeah, that was the big lesson that I learned.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, accepting our strengths and giving up our weaknesses is doesn't make us weak. It makes us
Right.
intelligent. It makes us smart because now we
Yeah.
can take that energy from that weak that we were wasting on that weakness and excel and use that for bettering other people's lives, starting with
Mhm.
ourselves by
Mhm.
admitting that,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So I'd say that's a very good lesson for all of us to learn that are
Yeah.
watching or listening.
Yeah.
It's tough, right? When I was struggling with my kids and I didn't know how to deal with some of the trauma they were dealing with because of divorce and going through living with both parents to living with just me,
Uh,
I sought out professionals. I
right.
sought out mentorship and coaching, and I also learned how many people think they know what I'm going through in the family and friends that
Yes.
really don't, and that their advice isn't worth, like my dad would say, their advice isn't worth a hill of beans, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
some of the
Yeah.
things that we go through. So that's a great message, right? You
Yeah.
can't do everything.
Well, now you got YouTube if you need to, see how to communicate with your kids. If, yeah. And there's so many times I've looked at YouTube to try to get some answers on some stuff, and
Me too.
yeah,
Now you
yeah.
can use AI. Now
Yeah.
you can use
AI,
it,
totally, right?
right?
Yeah.
You can utilize so many different
Oh,
aspects
yeah.
to
Yeah.
increase your emotional and a mental IQ, right?
Mm-hmm.
To make things better.
Right.
So we talked about, your dad and how his influence. Was there anybody else along your journey that when you talked about mentorship that mentored you that their ear when they spoke, you were like, I got to listen to that.
Yeah.
They might be
Yeah.
able to help me. Maybe there's a tidbit of knowledge that can make me be a better, communicator, storyteller, person. Was there any one person besides your dad, like a mentor? Maybe it wasn't even somebody you met. Maybe it was somebody you listened to or a book you read.
Yeah. There was one gentleman and a little bit of a famous guy, Michael Pritchard.
Hmm.
And Michael Pritchard, he used to brag all the time. Oh yeah, I had dinner with George Lucas. I'm like, okay, yeah, I had, dinner with, and he would go off on all this stuff, and I'd always kind of take it like, okay, sure, sure, sure. And then one day he invited me over to his house, and he's like, oh, there's my photo album, and I open it up, and there he is having dinner with George Lucas, and there he is, on stage with Robin Williams and all this kind of stuff. And he really like put his arm around me when I was looking for, some mentorship on speaking and getting out there. Michael Pritchard was a pretty well known speaker back in the day. He really came alongside me and reinforced in a different aspect some of the stuff that my dad had taught me. So, my dad taught me have that single focus. When I started speaking, I thought, wow, I'm going to talk on a whole bunch of topics. I'm going to cover this whole stuff because I'll get so much work because I'm talking on all these different topics. And I did that for a number of years. And then Michael Pritchard saw me speak, and for some reason, we just hit it off really well. And he came up, and I remember one piece of advice that I have given my speakers over and over again. Michael Pritchard said, when you start putting your presentation together, you want to focus on a certain group of people. And the example that he used, he says, you want to speak to people who have blue skin, six teeth, and they live in a trailer park. And he says, if you can niche your speech where that's the only group that you can talk to, he says, you will make so much money speaking. And I thought to myself, how could that possibly be? He says, because there's going to be people that work with blue skinned people that have six teeth that live in trailer park who are going to look for the professional and the expert in that area. So he says, niche your material. So I niched my material where all I do is talk to junior high and high school kids. That's it. Every now and then I'll speak to law enforcement or, some nonprofit groups, but that is the area that I niched. And he really mentored me in that, gave me that piece of information, and it has, really been valuable throughout my life. And I remember that example. And so he came alongside. And then in time, once my brother got out of prison, he really changed his life in prison. When he went to prison, he realized, man, he can't hang with those kind of guys. He doesn't have that kind of gang mentality. He's just a low level drug user, bringing stuff over. He turned his life around quite a bit and started working with people that had addictions and stuff. And he was a a real strong mentor to me as well. So both of those, Michael Pritchard and my brother Henry, were you know big markers in my life. Huge, helped me to excel, helped me to think, helped me to really focus on what I was doing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Would what do you do currently in your life to stay on an intentional, purposeful journey in your life? Like, what do you do for you?
For me,
What are some of your secrets? What do you do for you, Ray? What do
uh,
you? I'm not talking about going out for supper. I'm talking about what do you do for your own personal development?
uh, my own personal development, and see, I've created this job where there's zero burden for me. I just, if I want to go out to eat at a fancy dinner, I'm probably in some city somewhere. So that is taken care of. I love staying in hotels. I love flying. And I know it's going to sound crazy, but I really enjoy reading about drugs and alcohol. That is like a relaxing thing for me. And,
Your
that's,
passion, though, that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. And
Feeding
so,
your passion is a purposeful, intentful life.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it always adds to it. And so when people say, like, what is your hobby or what do you do for, man, my whole life is a hobby. I mean, just this week
Well, I
alone.
read that about you. You don't even feel like you have a job, right?
No,
So,
I since 1990, I
yeah.
hear people talk about, oh, I got to go to work. I'm like, okay, I just can't, and I hate saying that because I know there's people right now that are on the complete opposite side of that. But since 1990, I have not felt like I've worked a day in my life. I haven't. And so this week alone, we had 18 presentations. We were staying in a beautiful Airbnb. We went out to eat afterwards, and it just yeah, it sounds so weird to me, but I don't want to work with wood. I don't want to, I love going to the gym in the morning. I love riding my motorcycle, but I love going to the airport and I love talking to kids and those conversations that I have. And I think the big reward for me or the thing that like energizes me all the time, I give you this as an example. This is, I think, what empowers me. Yesterday, we were speaking, and I bring my daughter who does a presentation with me. So she was talking about alcohol, and we were talking about how, alcohol causes people to do stuff that they would not normally do. Presentation's over. My daughter's 28 years old, and this high school girl comes up to her, and you could tell she's been crying. And she comes up to my daughter, and I'm just kind of standing off to the side. And she goes, my dad is really insulting when he drinks and makes me feel really bad. She goes, is that really my dad or is that the alcohol? And my daughter was able to explain, well, this is why your dad does that. Because, and then she talks about the inhibitions inside the head and all those kind of things. And she says, how is your dad when he's not drinking? Because he's a really nice guy. Same kind of stuff I saw with my dad. And so my daughter was able to comfort her. So when she goes home and the next time her dad is telling her insulting stuff, there's now a check inside this young lady's head that goes, this isn't my dad. This is alcohol. This isn't my dad treating me like this. This is something that alcohol is making him do. So I'm not going to take it as personal as I used to. And that is my reward right there. That is the thing that I get so much pleasure from that, and I get so much reward from and that's been a constant in my life. And just the other day, I got a random private message on TikTok, and it's a high school kid. And he goes, "I love playing baseball, but I'm having trouble breathing when I run. Is that from the electronic cigarette?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's definitely from it." And he goes, "How do I quit?" So I'm working with him over TikTok on how to quit using his vape. That I know it sounds great. That's my reward, man. That's why I do this, and it's just my passion, and that's what I do for me is that. I
Well,
don't know.
though,
Yeah.
you don't have to know it all. You can feel it, and I can
Yes.
see it. For those that are listening on, your earbuds or whatever, and you're working out or you're driving in your vehicle, if you get a chance, go to YouTube. Watch this. Go to some of the places. If you can see what I can see, the excitement and the joy in Ray's eyes, it would just it'll completely make the conversation that much better. Not that it's
Hmm.
not good the way it is, but when you can see somebody and you can
Uh,
visualize the
uh,
excitement, the passion you have, and that
uh,
you're unapologetic about the fact that you like reading about drugs and alcohol. Well,
yeah.
that's fueling your passion to help more
Yeah.
people. It's like
Yeah.
me reading about financial stuff or reading
Right.
about right. Come on. Why do I do that?
Exactly.
Because I have a passion. Why do I
Yeah.
read it? Why do I do personal development to get into the minds of helping people with their monsters, their money monsters, their health monsters? I do so
Exactly.
much more than financial planning because that's my passion. I want to
Yes.
help them so they're stable enough so that they don't destroy their lives financially. I
Yeah.
want to help them with all these things about how to deal with associations or how to deal with negativity or how to
Right.
time themselves out or all these things are my passion. So
Yeah.
I like the fact never apologize for the fact of doing what makes you smile inside and
Definitely.
outside,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well, that's what it is. Thanks, man. You really helped me with that because every now and then I get that question like, what do you do for you as a hobby? I'm like, read about drugs, you know? Yeah, I
So
love it. Yeah. I'm looking
there's
at the
nothing
books
wrong.
on my shelf right
I
there. And
get that all the time though. What do you do? Well, I like hiking when the weather's nice. I really enjoy that. One of my favorite things is having a great conversation with a person
right.
over a meal, over a
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to be a meal. It could be a coffee. Just getting to know that person and getting to just climb inside of their skin. It may sound creepy, but to feel
Yes.
you and your passion, to feel your
Exactly.
energy. And I'm not physically saying do that. I'm saying like just empathize with them, like relate with them. And even if you don't relate, understand.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Understand what they're saying. You don't have to relate. You can pick up on the energy. You can understand. You don't
Yeah.
have to always have an answer. You don't always have to have a, a- an opinion. You can
Right.
just be somebody that enjoys Ray's passion. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't have to understand it or explain it away,
Thanks. Yeah, you're
right?
so right. Yeah.
Just enjoy your life, man. Like,
Yeah,
brother,
I
dude,
do.
like I say to people all the time, you do you and I'll do me. And if they're
There it
sitting
is.
in judgment of what I say, I have no problems looking at somebody and saying, now I'm very kind, never
Uh,
being an asshole about it. That sounds like a you issue, Ray,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. So
That
true.
doesn't, they try to project and make their you need to believe this. You can't believe that. You need to
Hmm.
believe in Trump. You need to believe in Biden. No, you need to believe in Poilievre. You
Yeah,
need to believe in Trudeau or whatever. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You need to believe that vaping is good. You
yeah,
need to believe vaping is bad. We
yeah,
know the
yeah,
truth,
yeah,
but at the end
yeah.
of the day, you do you, I'll do me. And
I
at the
love
end of the
that.
day, your opinion is your reality. I
Yeah,
cannot, right?
yeah.
At the end of the day, your reality is only going to be changed by working on you,
So true.
listening to somebody that's smarter than you.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean
yeah,
that they're more intelligent intellectually than you, but they got more skin in the game, more time in
yeah.
the game. They got more mistakes that be made into life lessons to make them a better individual to continue to drive forward in their passion. So if
Hmm.
they don't go out and quad and they don't go out and canoe and they don't go out and do all this stuff and they say they only have a couple hobbies and one of them
Yeah,
is personal development, which is one of mine, continue to
yeah.
develop myself, and the other one's hiking. Guess what? I've had so many group hikes where I've flown down to, I have a group of friends and we've met up. 2023, we met up in Portugal, we hiked.
Mm,
2021, we met up in Mexico, we hiked. 2020, we met
right.
up in Utah and went hiking. You know what? You can have some great conversations with people when you're out and you're self-free,
Yeah. Around the
right?
campfire, those are the best, aren't they?
Oh, I love campfires, but people
Yeah,
say to me, well, I mean like a real hobby. What?
yeah,
Your definition of real hobby? Me
yeah,
going out and playing beer league baseball or hockey, where
yeah,
people are after they're done playing their beer league at 11 o'clock at night or whatever, and they're
yeah.
pounding back beers. That's them. They can do them.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
not me. Quit
I think it,
defining who I need to be by what you believe I should be.
right. Yeah.
Right?
I yeah, yeah, and I understand what you're saying because I think what happens is people are doing all of this stuff that they hate doing, and they want to do this because they love it. But for us, it's like I'm doing all of this stuff that I love to do. So every now and then I do something that I don't, maybe I don't love as much, but yeah, I'll end up doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I wake up every day. I don't have an alarm. I set my own schedule. And there's very rarely do I wake up and like, I got to do this. I designed my job. I made it the way I wanted to make it. And what I'm not good at, I send off to my other employees, and like, you knock this out and I'll take care of the big picture.
Wow.
Yeah,
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 you've got your life roadmap and you know
yeah.
what's going to be there and you know what things you're going to put in the legend of your map. And
Hmm.
that legend of the map might be your assistant dealing with your calendar.
Right, right. Yeah,
You can have a little legend over here. This is how this map of my life's going to run.
right.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
here's a pit stop. I have to talk to her. Oh,
Uh-huh.
now I'm back on the road. Oh, this is a pit stop at the airport. I'm flying to help somebody, right?
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
life map is your life map, and
yeah.
if it makes you smile more than it makes you sad,
Hmm.
if it makes it so you can look in the mirror and you like and you're proud of yourself, that's even better,
Yeah,
right?
so
And they're
true.
gonna have days that maybe you question yourself, maybe you, I don't know. Once in a while, I do have imposter syndrome. Like, why would anybody want to be on my show? Why would
Yeah.
anybody want me to help them with finance? Why
Uh,
would anybody want me to coach them on, how to increase their positive associations and get rid of the negative ones, even if it's family based, just
mhm.
stuff like that. It's just like, you know what? This is who I am. I'm
Right.
the ultimate genuine me.
I
You're
love
either
it.
going to like me or you're not going to like me. You're going to want to be
Yeah.
part of my tribe. You're going to want to run away from my tribe. And the ones that run away, they've done me a favor.
Right, right.
You know, like
Yeah.
sometimes I get a friend of mine that says to me all the time, you know, he says sometimes you just got to let the trash take itself out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That same exact thing. Yeah, yeah.
Right? You got to let the garbage take itself out. And at the end of the day, they're going to live on the hamster wheel of their life and they're going to hit retirement. They're going to hate retirement. They're going to die young because they got nothing. They're not feeding this giant computer. Does
Right.
not to know the difference between the truth and a lie. You need to feed your brain
Oh
or you're
yeah.
going to become stagnant. You just
Yeah.
do.
Totally.
And that
Totally.
can be done through conversations, books, podcasts,
Right.
documentaries.
Yeah.
My favorite of all those,
Uh-huh.
what we're doing right now,
Yeah. I love this, man.
conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
Conversation because we can learn and grow together,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it doesn't
Totally.
have to end. It can go
No.
on even past this podcast.
Yeah.
It's all depends what people want.
Yeah.
So, you know, what a great conversation. Um, what would you give for advice to somebody that's an entrepreneur and
Uh-huh.
how to have their work and life purpose intertwine better?
Mm. Every now and then I talk to kids about this. And we talk a little bit about a business or that kind of stuff, and I tell the kids, what's your candy? And so what is that one candy you could eat all the time? Like if it was in front of you, that's the candy you would eat, right? And so I think for entrepreneurs, and you got to figure out what your candy is. What's the thing that if you have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to do, you're okay with that? And so, my advice for entrepreneurs is to take a moment before you start whatever you're going to start and think about that aspect. When I sat down and thought about this job, I thought, do I want to go to the airport at 4:30 in the morning? Yes, I want to do that. Do I want to get stuck in, an airport? I'm like, nah, not really. But it's kind of that 80-20. I love 80% of this, so it's easy for me to put up with the 20%. Because I've seen some entrepreneurs that have built a business that becomes like a burden around their neck. And it's something that they struggle with and something that they don't enjoy doing. And so I think if you're a young entrepreneur, sit down and think of all the aspects of what you're going to be doing before you start it. And then move forward from there because this is the candy that I have to eat every day and I love it, you
How
know.
do high school kids respond to that type of a presentation conversation? Do you ever have that? Like I know you talk about drugs and alcohol. How is the overall response from those kids?
Great. We talk about it because we talk about it in light of drugs and alcohol. So, one of the things that we talk about is a thing called loss of potential. People that look like they're going to be amazing end up doing drugs and alcohol and they do nothing with their life. And so we talk about, I'll give you an example. We just recently did a TV interview in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it seems like every time we do a presentation or a type of interview like that, they always ask this question: what is the worst thing for middle school students when it comes to drugs and alcohol? And I always feel like they want us to say death, because death is terrible. I'm not going to try to downplay that, but a kid is going to use an electronic cigarette 40 or 50 or 60 years before he gets to that place of death. And then that end part is just going to be awful, but they're not going to think about that. But I always say this thing called lost potential. If this is the very worst thing, which is death, right underneath it is my sister living a life of nothing, absolutely nothing, not leaving a mark on anybody, not having your
No
name,
legacy.
what, no legacy, right? And so the thing is, I talk about that with students, and I say, I tell them this is something you're not going to understand in eighth grade or even in high school, but all of you have a special talent, skill, or ability. Something's been given to every single one of you that you have to nurture it and take care of it. So then we do this whole example with kids. I'll ask them, yesterday we had like 300 kids in the room, and I said, just by round of applause, how many of you are great at sports? Probably out of the 300 kids, we had like, 260 kids or 220 kids that clapped, like, yeah, I love playing sports. And I said, well, think about this. Whatever sport you're thinking about and you're good at, there's somebody out there right now playing that sport, making great money. There's somebody sitting at home right now who lost that ability because of drugs and alcohol. How many of you are great at playing a musical instrument? There's somebody making great money doing that. There's somebody that has lost that ability. So I let them know you need to protect that thing that is going to help you go through life. And so that's the response that we get from kids is like, oh, it is important for me not to do drugs, not for the aspect of just not doing drugs, but because it's going to help me have a better life doing the things that I love to do. And when we explain that to kids and when we talk about that, it makes more sense to them as opposed to don't do drugs because it's going to mess up your lungs. Kids don't care about their lungs, but they want to have this life that has left a mark. And you see that with high school students, then they give them an opportunity to put their name in the parking lot with spray paint, or if they're
Well, that's a great way to share though when you're talking about this person has this talent making lots of money. You've lost your potential because of drugs and alcohol. How do you explain those? Sorry, because then we're running out of time here. I wanted to ask you about the vaping more specifically too. How do you explain that when you just finished saying that the kids don't care about their lungs? How do you work in the conversation of vaping? Like you can show look at like in Canada, they have to put on cigarette packs the picture of cancerous lungs and all this other stuff to try. They've proven it doesn't help,
right. Oh
right?
yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
So how do you impact somebody that's a heavy vapor in high school or junior high even,
Uh-huh.
right? And they're not just vaping cigarette, right?
Right.
Nicotine,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
They could be vaping whatever.
Right. It needs to hit home. It needs to be personal and it needs to be right now. Right? So if I talk about their lungs, they can't see their lungs. You know, they can't. If I talk about not getting into college, they can't see that. So the biggest impact that we have on students is to kind of pull that veil away when it comes to addiction. So we will do this whole presentation that's 45 minutes long, and it's all based in humor. And if I had time, I would explain why we do that. But if I go, and there's two types of presentations. There is the testimonial. Hey, kids, I did drugs and alcohol. I ruined my life. You don't do that, right? Kids don't care about that. Then you get the fear-based ones. Hey, kids, if you smoke weed, you're never going to get into college, right? Kids don't care about that. So ours is based on right now. What is happening right now? So at the end of our presentation, this is where we have the biggest impact is we give kids 6 questions. And I say, if you answer yes to one of these questions, you're pointed in the right direction for an addiction. If you answer yes to two or all 6 of them, what that means is when you get ready to quit, it's going to be really difficult. More than likely, you have an addiction. And I see kids like, whoa, is this guy going to demonstrate that I have an addiction? So our 6 questions are, If you know anybody that's ever vaped or smoked in class, teacher turns their back or walks out of the room, they pull out their electronic cigarette, they use it, they blow the smoke behind them, or they blow it in their shirt. I said, that's a sign of an addiction. And instantly I see kids like, I thought that was just funny, but that's a sign of addiction. Number two, if you see somebody going in and out of the bathroom, because this is relevant, this is happening to them right now. If you see somebody going in and out of the bathroom in between every class using their electronic cigarette, that's a huge sign of an addiction. And you see kids like, oh my gosh, that's me. Or they're like, I've seen you do that a whole bunch, right? If you've ever lied or done something illegal to get an electronic cigarette, now, if you've ever gone to a website and said, are you over the age of 18? And you're not, and you hit yes, and then you have that item sent to a friend's house and you pick it up, I said, you just lied about that. Or if you purchased it off somebody that shouldn't be selling it, like your older brother or sister, I said, that's illegal. And so when we do these 6 questions, there's 3 more, but when we do these 6 questions, it instantly hits home with kids. This is the biggest impact we have because it means it's right now. Kids are like, I've done that. I think that. I act that way. And so all of a sudden, when we reinforce it at the end, like this is happening to you right now, then kids are like, oh my gosh, that makes sense what all the other information is saying. So that's one of the things I don't ever see speakers do or mistakes that speakers make is they talk way down in the future. So let's say we had a room full, and this will be my example real quick. Let's say we had a room full of kids right now that were listening to us speak. We had 16-year-olds up to like 54-year-olds, right? And I said, all right, thank you so much for being at this workshop. Hey, just a piece of advice. When you leave this and you're driving out of the parking lot and you start heading down the road, underneath a tree, there's this cop that likes to hide underneath that tree right there. Just be cautious. He likes to hand out tickets, right? Every adult over the age of 21 is going to go, wow, that's good. I'm going to drive slow past that tree just because there's a cop there. But the problem is you're going to get 16 and 17-year-olds that think different, and they're going to go, I don't really know if there's a cop there. I got to test that out. Boom, right? You see that with little kids. Hey, don't touch that knife. What do? They touch that knife. Hey, don't put that in your mouth. They instantly put that in their mouth, right? Because
Don't talk like this.
what was that?
Don't talk like this, and they talk
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this.
It's because their brain thinks different.
Yeah.
So what happens is everybody's giving that cop under the tree piece of advice when a lot of times kids are going to go, I got to test that out. I see this with speakers all the time. Boy, if you drink alcohol and you mix it with marijuana, it's going to be terrible. You're going to have this experience where your body, and it's, I see so many drug speakers that are actually an encouragement to try different things. Boy, they're making this new vape and it's got this really intense mango flavor. Who wants to smoke a mango flavor? Mango's just, and you see kids in the audience like, whoa, mango, and I've even seen, speakers give out drug recipes. So we have to understand that kids think different and they think the here and now. If you're doing financial stuff, kids don't want to know about a 401k. You know what I mean? That's too far down the road. And so they want to know about, how do I save money right now or how do I make money right now?
I want to get my that skateboard I seen at the local
There it is.
store. I want to
Yeah,
buy the newest this t-shirt, or I want to be able to go to my friends to the water park. I want to be able to do this and do that. And how am I going to do it? Mom and dad, I have to figure things out.
hmm
So, like I tell people, as an entrepreneur, I started when I was 12. How can you start being an entrepreneur at 12? I
yeah,
had a paper route. I had
yes,
to collect money. I had to
yeah,
get up and go out in the rain, here, snow, sleet, didn't matter. I had
right,
to have doors slammed in my face because people couldn't afford to pay their bill. And I give
right,
them too many months because I was kind. I had to learn
right.
boundaries. I had to learn. They're going like, what? You were
Uh,
12. Well,
yeah,
my dad said, I got to give you a roof over your head, food, and love. The rest,
uh,
up to you.
rest is up to you. Yeah, yeah,
You want something? The rest
yeah,
is up to you. You want those
yeah,
comic books that you like collecting?
yeah.
Marvel or Richie Rich. Remember the Richie Rich
Oh gosh, I
comic
remember
books,
Richie Rich. Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
I got a box in my garage of a few hundred of them
Diving into a
still.
swimming pool of coins. Yeah,
Yeah. So you know what? At the end of the day, whatever you
yeah.
gotta start young. Some of you didn't, but it's never too late to give a heck. I don't care
Never.
what age you are. old dog new tricks, that saying is so dumb in my
Yeah.
opinion. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
so let's talk about your book. You
Uh-huh.
wrote it just this last year, or released it just this last year.
Yeah.
Addicted to Learning, Comprehending Chaos Through Everyday Family Events. I myself wrote a book and found it very cathartic. It helped me realize things about myself, both good and bad.
Uh-huh.
Pat myself in the back, kicked myself in the butt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was one of those situations. What was writing the book like for you? What did it do for you?
I brought back memories I hadn't thought about in a long time. And it helped me to connect pieces together and to understand stuff. There's a story in the book about my mom, and my mom would tell this tragic story of her after, going through all these traumatic things and, being there when her mom died in the back seat of a car and just how awful it was. And my mom would tell this one horrendous story that it rips you up apart. But she would always end the story, and I talk about this in the book. My dad got to the place where he did really well farming, and my mom had like a new car every 2 years, and so she would tell me this horrendous story about her mom dying. And then she goes, and now here I am driving my brand new Lincoln, and it always ended with this like positive thing at the end. And I started to realize, man, the strength that my mom had, the intelligence that my dad had, my sister, even though she did drugs, there's this deep cord that runs through her of compassion and wanting to take care of people. And my other brother who smuggled drugs in the United States, there's a part of him that just wants to help people understand, their addiction. And my other brother who was a drinker and a fighter, how he, as I was writing this book and writing stories about him, he wants to be known as the good advice guy. He wants to be somebody who you could come to, and he has this opportunity to kind of ask questions and figure out the best route for you. And he's done that for me, over and over again. So it gave me a deeper understanding of my family. It gave me a more compassionate feel for them, and it helped me to understand all of these crazy things got me to your podcast today. You know what I mean? It helped me to have this conversation with you. And I can't dismiss all of that stuff because that's the fabric. Those are the threads that made me who I am. So I am here because of my family.
That is so unique, the perspective of being able to look past the chaos of what your family went through to be able to see their unique threads.
Hmm.
Again, through all the chaos, you can still talk about your sister, your brother, your mom. You dealt with alcoholism and the drug usage from family and sitting out on that curb. I remember you talking about that
Hmm.
at a very young age. And wow, you were, if the book hasn't done it, I'll do it. I'll pat you on the back because you have a unique gift.
Thank you.
Yes, that gift may have always been there, but you are strong and you've nurtured it and you continue to nurture it and you continue to look for the best in people and use storytelling and analogies to make them connect at the level that they're at to listen
Right.
to
Thank
learn
you.
from, right?
Yeah.
So good for you,
I appreciate that.
congratulations. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so that would be a standout thing that you talked about with, you're talking about your mom, right?
Hmm.
From your book. Like it, I can't even begin to tell people what my book did for me. Right.
Uh-huh.
It totally was a pivoting thing. It started out just like my book's like my podcast. Origin story,
Right.
teaching,
Right.
learning. What did I
Uh-huh.
learn? There's stuff in there about a little bit about faith. There's a little bit about finance. There's a little bit about meet a paper boy. There's a little bit about, just, and then ending where I started my podcast and then released the book in 2021. It's just,
Ah.
people don't realize, even those out there that you don't think you could ever write a book,
Mhm.
just journal.
Yeah.
Write it
Yeah.
down.
Right.
What
Yeah.
what your hand or typing, your brain interprets it differently.
Yeah.
And learn to, when you write, this is my advice to people, never send that text right away, that email right away, never leave that voicemail right away when you're upset, whatever.
Mhm.
Learn that everything in your life isn't meant to be said right away. It's better
Right.
to be thought of an idiot than open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's better for people to just realize that, journal it, write it down,
Mm-hmm.
percolate on it, wait a few hours, read it
Right.
again,
Oh gosh, yeah, yeah,
wait till the next day. You know how many
yeah,
times I've just needed to vent and then I delete it?
yeah. Yeah,
Because
so true,
really,
right?
what I think to myself, if what I'm about to say going to serve that person, or is it just going to feed my ego?
Right. Yeah.
And ego can be good or bad, right? But most people have bad ego. So am I just saying that snidey thing or that keyboard warrior thing? Like my podcast the week before last was just me doing a solo podcast all about keyboard warriors,
Uh-huh. Huh.
right? 40 minutes of me talking about my experiences and why people need to think before they open their mouth and
Oh
remove
yeah.
all doubt, right?
Yeah. 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 So true.
Would you say that if you're saying negative stuff to yourself, would you say that to your friend, your
No.
family member, your
Yeah.
colleague, your client? No. So
Yeah.
why do that to yourself? If
Yeah.
you're an uplifting person for everybody else, but you're a facade with yourself,
Uh-huh.
why aren't you, you know what? I challenge you as the host of this podcast, when you go to bed tonight, think about, did I do one thing today to make somebody else
Hmm.
have an aha moment, to feel
Right.
good about themselves, to smile, to give them enough energy to make it through their lousy shift at the convenience store or the
Right.
clothing
Yeah.
store or grocery store? What difference are you doing? What
Yeah.
legacy are you living? What legacy are you going to leave behind? Are you going to be like Ray's sister or
Mhm.
some of my family members that
Mhm.
are just waiting to retire and then die?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Life has so much more than that, doesn't it,
So
Ray?
much more. Yeah. I know there's people want to get to the end in their original packaging, but I want to be tore up and have a legacy of people behind
Skin
me.
knees, couple
Yeah.
scars,
Right. Yeah.
no
Yeah.
hair left.
Well, mine's moving up, so yeah.
Yeah, well, mine's done a little bit more than that. I got a little bit,
Yeah.
not much, right? Whatever. It
Yeah.
just, like I tell people, I joke around. They'll say, what happened?" Like my, unbelievable, my 5-year-old granddaughter said this week, "Papa, where's your hair gone? I think you need hair. You'd be so much more handsome." She's 5, eh? And I'm just like, whatever. I just teased her. But other people will say that to me that are adults. What? Oh, must suck not to have your hair. I said, no, I got a warm back now.
Yeah. You trimmed them all down there. Yeah.
It just fell back, and right now I got a comfortable back. But
That's
anyway,
so funny.
I
Yeah.
digress.
I love
The
that.
last thing I'm going to ask you is, Ray, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Giving a heck. One last message. I think I would want to tell people not to be afraid. Not to be afraid. You know, have family members that are stuck in this terrible spot because they're afraid of moving forward. And as an entrepreneur, I have had to tackle things that just scare me. And I realized, they're not as bad as I thought. And so if you're, speaking directly to them, if you're afraid to start that business or you're going to get stuck in that spot. But it's the person, we live in Las Vegas, so we go and play cards every now and then. And it always feels like the people that are willing to push all in are the ones that get the biggest reward. And so that's my advice is just in life, just sometimes push it all in, see where it goes, and you could recover or you could double up and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, don't be afraid. That would be my
What
my
a
uh my closing remark.
What a great analogy. I love that because I like poker. I haven't
Oh, do
played in
you?
years. I haven't played in years. Well, I played in a tournament monthly at one of my relatives' house, and what, we didn't spend a lot of money, but I looked forward to it. I did it for a decade. Then I
Uh-huh.
had a tragedy happen where I lost one of my grandkids, and I quit playing poker. And I haven't,
Right.
except for the odd time on video, like video poker on a phone
Yeah.
when I've been bored
Uh-huh.
sitting in an office, which doesn't happen very much because I got emails I can do while I'm sitting waiting.
Yeah.
I got this, but yeah, I like poker. It,
Yeah.
it, it really challenges you to study human behavior.
That's it. I was gonna say that you beat me to it because there's that saying, you don't play the cards, you play the person. And I know when I go play, I can tell there's people I can push around, there's people I can't push around. And it doesn't matter what cards I have a lot of times that I'll be able to play, and yeah, that's what it is. It's playing that person. It's being able to, look at human beings and see how they react.
And if it's playing at a table of 10 people or poker and there's somebody there that's already 5 beers in and you're not even at break yet,
Yeah.
such an easy read. And they wonder
Easy
why
read.
they're always the 10th person or their first person out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
learn so much about people. Addictions affect everything.
Oh yeah,
But
they do.
so our time is almost up. Can you do me a favor and tell the listeners what's the best way they can reach you?
The best way to reach me is just going to go to my website, which is Ray, Ray, Lozano, Lozano, and just go to the contact page. And so, I have some stuff on Instagram, I put some stuff on TikTok, but the best way is just through my website. Or if they can't, find me that way, if you just go to Google, I know we don't use that so much anymore, but if you type in, youth speaker, drug youth speaker, I pop up. I'm one of the first guys that pops up on there after the advertisements and all that kind of stuff. Or just put Ray Lozano into Google. I'm not the guitar player. I am the speaker, which is right underneath the guitar player.
I
But
smile because I typed in your name when I was yesterday and I Googled it. What? This
uh,
isn't him. So I
yeah,
put in
yeah.
your name, I put in your name and put author. Then you came
Uh,
up.
oh
It
yeah,
did.
perfect.
Yes,
Yeah.
it come up. I was surprised. I thought, oh, cool. And then I went to Amazon and I'm looking at it. And oh
Uh,
yeah, I do a lot of research because I want to know who I'm
excellent.
communicating with.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yes, and for those new to the show, go to giveaheck.com, click podcast at the top. You'll see Ray's face. You'll see all the abbreviated show, pardon me, you'll have the full show, unedited show notes there. You'll have all the links to all the social media
Uh-huh.
and how to get a hold of Ray. And yeah, one-stop shop. Just go to giveaheck.com and you can, find out everything you need so you don't have to stop your car, pull over to the side of the road and write down what Ray was saying. You don't have to remember how to spell his name even. Just go to
Yeah, that's good.
giveaheck.com, right? It'll all be there. Any last words before I wrap up the show?
No, this has been fantastic. I can't believe how fast that time went. I feel like we've only been talking a half an hour, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, excellent, man. I love being on here today.
Well, I appreciate you too. I loved having you on because you're a wealth of information, such a great storyteller. You really know how to use analogies properly to make people have that thought
Yeah,
process where they pause before they react, right?
yeah, yeah,
Reacting
maybe,
is, right?
yeah,
Pause, think before you open your mouth,
no
right?
doubt.
Or
Yeah,
type it out.
yeah. Hopefully, this podcast might get me some an opportunity to come to Canada and speak because I think you may have a vaping problem up there with kids as well.
Oh, it's everywhere in the world.
Yeah,
When I
yeah.
was in Europe, I seen it everywhere.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But yeah, so I appreciate that. I'm going to wrap up the show now. Thanks again, Ray. We'll talk to you soon. So, audience, thanks so much to Ray for being on Give a Heck. I appreciate your time and your talents and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn. It is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.